Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our 2026 Vassos State Tournament Coach Call. Really excited to be seeing you all in just 10 days at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. So I've got some key information for you tonight, um, to make sure that you are getting all your ducks in a row before, for most of us traveling to Charlottesville, for some people just going down the street, but making sure your teams have what they need. I do have some people joining live tonight in the Zoom. So for those of you that are live on the call, please feel free to ask questions in the chat. I'll stop and pause for any questions as well if you'd prefer to ask them over a microphone. But the great thing is that like a lot of this should be really familiar from regionals, and we just really focus on the key changes for state. So all the information that you already successfully implemented for your regional tournament experience carries forward. So we are going to look at the state tournament schedule. We'll talk a little bit about how events change from the regional level to the state level, particularly our build events. And then we'll just go through what we need to worry about with rosters and volunteers and device testing sign up, which opened half an hour ago and already like 17 of the 48 teams have signed up. And then I'll have some UVA specific information to share with you, since they are our hosts. So, as of today, like this afternoon, the state schedules do have rooms populated in them. Um, so if you were waiting to like print anything out, I mean, I probably would still wait a little bit, but it does actually have what I would consider a complete set of information. But you never know what things pop up that we may have to change. But for right now, we have a room for every event. So just like at the regional tournament level, our tournament day is a full day. Check-in will start at 7:30, and that carries us all the way through to awards, which for Division B is at 6:30 and Division C is at 7:30. We do, like regionals, have our impound window from 8 to 9 a.m. But of course, note that there are additional impound events just because there are additional events that we're running at this tournament. So unless you went to the Mary Washington Regional, in Division B, we've added on like Mission Possible as an impound event, as well as some of our written test events. So, of course, I'm sure you're planning for that in how your team allocated events, but I just wanted to put that on your radar as another thing to add to your impound list for the morning. Also, for Division C, we have not only Robot Tour and Bungee Drop, which were events that were only run at the Mary Washington Regional, but we also have one of our trial events, which is Impound, which is protein modeling. They have to pre-build a protein model, and bring it in. So just wanted to put that on your radar as well. But pretty similar schedule. We're doing a 2-session rotation. So what that means is that each event runs twice. Half the teams write team numbers 1 through 12 in one block and team numbers 13 through 24 in the other block. If it says GB beside it, that just means we have gold bids that are competing in that event as well, and that designates when they are supposed to be participating in that event. But all of our build events, as well as our trial events, are self-schedules still. So, again, a couple highlights. Our award ceremonies, like we've done in the past couple years, are split by division. They will be in the same place we've had them the past few years, which is this very big lecture hall in the chemistry building. But we have the B awards first and then the C awards. Like I mentioned, the trial events are all self-schedule. So, in addition to the normal build events, and then protein modeling with that impound component. And then with those schedules, it is up to you, as a coach, what your expectation for your team is. Just like at regionals, the only person who's checking in with Vaso is you. And so we ask for you to be there at 7:30, to get your wristbands and to get things going with your team. If you travel down together as a team, or are staying overnight, then great. Everyone can show up at the same time. They don't have to check in with us, right? They can go to their home base area and then you can just check in with us. But if you are having them travel separately, if they're coming with parents or driving themselves or whatever you've d decided with your school, um, just know that again, they don't check in with us when they come in, so please make sure that you're giving them information about where to find you and just be mindful of those impound events, making sure that devices show up in time to meet that impound window, even if their events themselves are later in the day. So work that out however you need to with your team. VASO doesn't have a requirement that they're there the whole day, but your school might, depending on the nature, um, of how you've done like the field trip forms. Also know that the set events, just like at regionals, we can't move them. So students and families need to know when their event is happening. And so if you're allowing them to like stagger and come in at different times throughout the day, they should be aware of when their event begins, leaving themselves enough time to park, get settled, etc. So, team numbers are in the portal, so you can take a look at that if you haven't already and figure out by, for our students what time their events are running so they can be there on time and ready to go. The coach check-in process itself will be very similar to regionals. So the packets that you will receive will have your wristbands, will have rosters for you to confirm, we'll have a trash bag in there for you, we'll have a copy of a schedule. So very, very similar. Admittedly, probably a little easier since everyone only has one team, and so we don't have to worry about moving students between teams if there's any roster changes. If you do have roster changes, someone is sick and needs to, need to bring an alternate and turn them into a main team member, you can do that morning at check-in. I will be there to help facilitate that and get wristbands situated. Check-in's going to take place in Wilsdorf Hall on the ground floor, just as we've had in years past. And I do have a map for you, don't worry. But so that will be kind of between, like, it's kind of in the middle of the buildings we're going to be utilizing. Um, and then students do not need wristbands to impound. We recognize that our events are going to be a little bit spread out. We are not using Slaughter Rec Center this year, if you noticed, for those of you that have competed at state in the past. So that means that we're using a variety of different buildings for our build events. And so don't want that to be a stressor on tournament day. But of course, they will need the wristbands to actually compete. Okay, so I promised a map. Here it is. I've actually already linked this as well on the Google Sheet of the schedule on both the Division B and Division C pages. And this will be in the slides. But so I've updated this to reflect the actual buildings that we will be using this year. So Wilsdorf is number 140 on this map. So you can see it's like I said, kind of in the middle of everything we're going to be using. It's immediately next door to the chemistry building, which is going to have a good chunk of our events, especially, of course, our lab events, but as well as some of our written test events. And that is ultimately where the award ceremony will be. We have some of our build events happening in the Dell buildings, which are across McCormick Road. They're highlighted as number 42 on this map. So there's Dell 1 and Dell 2, but they're like right beside each other, where a number of our build events are happening. And then some other notable builds, we'll be using the atrium of Minor Hall, which is number 99, further down on the right here on McCormick Road. That's going to be for helicopter. And then we also are using some spaces in Warner, which is next door to that. So we are using some different buildings than we have in the past, but they're still all along McCormick Road. From Gilmer to Minor is only 0.4 miles, which I will point out is a shorter distance than including when we used to go to Slaughter. So there is going to be some walking. Which means that depending on the weather that day, I haven't checked the forecast because it's too far out for it to be anything really valid yet. But depending on forecast, students may need to consider, jackets, umbrellas, good walking shoes, definitely regardless of temperature, because they will be going between buildings for their events. Um, on the very left, number 108 is the Observatory Hill dining room, and that is going to be the most convenient location for on-campus dining. And I have some more information about that in a later slide, but just wanted to include why that's highlighted here. In terms of parking, I have linked on the map the full like UVA parking regulations, but the main area, which has always been where we suggest people park, is the stadium lots. So as you can see, the stadium here, number 124. Um, there's parking lots behind, like between the stadium and the chemistry buildings, and then there's easy walkways up to McCormick Road. So one of them is labeled here as Chemistry Drive. It goes right by Wilsdorf. And then the other one is Engineering Way, that I've labeled on here. We are not actually using any of the engineering buildings. In fact, I'll talk about that. There's another event happening on campus that day. Who Hacks, their hackathon is occurring, and they're using the engineering buildings. But just as a travel path, that is an option. But if you've been on UVA grounds, especially for our state tournaments in the past, the areas along Engineering Way may not be as available for teams because Who Hacks is using like all of the engineering buildings. So I just wanted you to know that. I have some more information about Who Hacks here in a second as well. But so this map being linked can be shared to any families, students, and then of course the actual UVA parking website is also publicly available. We do have team home bases. So we were able to secure three different lecture halls to use as home bases. Unfortunately, we were not able to secure enough space to really accommodate like additional family members, but we do have enough team spaces, like literal seats in the lecture hall. Um, for team members and coaches. So just to give you an idea of how we divided this up, all the elementary teams are going to be in Gilmer 390, which is a lecture hall that has 151 seats. The middle school teams are going to be in Warner 209, that has 294 seats. And then the high school teams they have one lecture hall. It's the biggest, but we also recognize high schoolers are going to be potentially like exploring campus a little more. Gilmer 301, which is just over 300 seats. So I include those numbers to show that like we really don't have the capacity to accommodate like siblings and family members in these lecture hall spaces. Um, but the reason why is because we have other events that are happening on grounds like Who Hacks that they also needed to reserve a bunch of spaces for their event. So these are in the portal. Gilmer and Warner are labeled on the map. But again, we've done the math based on team members and coaches. A little bit more about home bases. Obviously, they're sharing space with other schools, all the elementary schools together, all the middle schools together, all the high schools together. So please tell students and coaches and anyone who's traveling who may be entering those spaces to be respectful of other teams' belongings, their devices, and any of their seats that they have put their stuff on. Again, spaces are for team members and coaches. Um, I would also ask that the lecture hall spaces be like kept from, significant amounts of food. The cleanup for a lecture hall is really, really challenging because of all the rows of seats. So would really ask that there not be like a bunch of snacks brought in. We do have O Hill Dining Room, which is just down McCormick Road. Students are welcome to, walk around with like packaged snacks, but like we've had incidents in the past in some of these spaces where there's been like a whole bunch of goldfish on the carpet and people like stepped on them and things like that. And I would really like to avoid that. for this year, and so please ask your teams to like I said, they can bring packaged snacks, but would encourage them to not eat them like in the actual lecture hall space. There are, if the weather's nice, there's a variety of different picnic areas, benches, tables, etc., around the area that we're going to be in. If teams do seek out other spaces, as I know many of our teams like to do, please be respectful of other events going on. Who Hacks is happening, but I think there are probably other events as well. So all we have control over is the spaces that we have reserved. Open public spaces are, of course, open for anyone. But if they say like, oh, we've reserved this, even if it's an outdoor space, like please encourage your families and team members to be respectful and vacate that area. And then this is new this year because of what Who Hacks is using on campus. I know some of our teams in the past have really enjoyed and taken advantage of the like first floor chemistry space, but that is not going to be accessible to us this year. So no teams should plan to use any spaces in the chemistry building. And I do have a little bit more information about that. So the chemistry building is the one place where we are overlapping and coexisting with Who Hacks. Who Hacks is doing their morning breakfast and registration and like welcome session in the chemistry building. So to control the flow of traffic, because they're going to have like all of their people coming to the chemistry building for registration, it can be really overwhelming to then have all of our Vaso people there as well. We're going to give each team 2 chaperone lanyards for adults who can escort competitors to events in the third floor chemistry lab rooms. So every room that we are using in the chemistry building is on the third floor, except for, of course, the awards later in the evening. But it's just like 2 wings of rooms. That they'll be accessing where all the labs are like in a row. And so we'll have those at check-in for the coaches. And then this is so that Who Hacks knows who everyone is. Who Hacks people will also be wearing lanyards, as well as like our security people in that building. And we do have some volunteer shifts that are going to be supervising the third floor of the chemistry building, because the other part of this is that at no point should anyone involved with Science Olympiad at all be on the first or second floor of the chemistry building. And so we have to have monitors to keep track of that because Who Hacks is using the first and second floor. We have asked them to like contain their music to the lecture hall they're using and not played in the registration atrium, and they have agreed to that so that our competitors can have some more quiet a more quiet environment. So there is some give and take happening here. And I just wanted to make you aware of that. They will be out of there by mid-afternoon. So of course we'll be able to get in there for awards, but it'll be fairly restricted for most of our day because of their use of it. And so I ask you to pass this along to team families. To be honest, I'm not very worried about this with Division C because Division C competitors tend to walk themselves to their events and they don't really have anybody hanging out near the rooms. But for our Division B coaches, if you could please, work to figure out who those 2 chaperones may be. Of course, that can change. It's a lanyard, so they can just like pass it depending on which sessions they're able to take the students to. But also, I think this will really help us clear out the hallways so that there's not people sitting in them, kind of blocking some of the traffic that, we may need to walk through or even Who Hacks. So hopefully this will go a little more smoothly and we'll have less chaos and confusion than we did this past year where we had like the same overlap occurring. Okay. Are there any questions about that actually before I keep going on um, other things to prep for? Because I know this is new, so even our veteran coaches, this will be a little bit of a change.
Hi, Emily. It's Julie. I have a question. So I think I heard you say that there will be volunteers there that will also help kids move up. So if we just said to parents, make sure you get your kids to the chem building, and then, you know, the team members stay together, go
Sure.
upstairs, don't wait for it, like just in case one of the school team chaperones isn't like visible right away. Don't wait for them. You can just go upstairs, and if you and there's going to be volunteers there that'll help you find your room. That will work too, right?
Yes, so the supervisors will be the third floor supervisors will be directed to like here are the two wings of the rooms. This is 320 through whatever and this is 340 through whatever. Um I think actually I guess it depends on which way you're coming into the chemistry building. One of the entrances is directly onto the third floor. So that should make it even easier. But yes, they can do that. We'll have Vaso people on the third floor all morning who can help students navigate as well. And yes, to confirm in the chat, this is only for the chem building. The other events, we are the only people using those buildings and those rooms. It's just the chemistry building because of the very like HUACS is a very large event. And so the chemistry building has like the largest lecture hall, and so that's why they need that. So it's only chemistry building. Okay. So, coaches. Um, so for the head coach, if you are able to attend, great. Then you're already in the system. You already did regionals. You will just say yes that you're going to be at the tournament. Um, and if it's going to be different though, if it's going to be like maybe you're not able to attend or it's a gold bid or something like that, there's a couple steps that you have to do to make this happen. So one, the whoever's going to be acting as the coach on tournament day needs to be approved by your school administrator. Then two, this has to be communicated to Vaso. And three, they need to make a coach account in the Vaso portal. And so all of those things are outlined in our team expectations policy. They can make a portal account just like you made a portal account. I can approve it, but it's helpful if I know in advance like why that it's not just someone making it in error who's trying to sign up as a volunteer. Um, and then they can indicate in the portal, yes, they will be there. They'll get access to the rosters. They'll be able to make appeals, etc. Only coaches who have portal accounts and who have said yes to being present at state will be issued wristbands on tournament day. Okay. So please make sure that you have figured out who all is representing your school and cleared that with your admin. And then, of course, like I said, you need to also say if you're going to be there that you put yes. It doesn't default to yes, it defaults to no. Um, Changes for events. If you've never been to a state tournament before or competed at a state level or national level, you may not have realized, or maybe your students haven't realized, that the rules are actually slightly different for most events. Um, And it'll say in the rule book, at the regional level, you can be asked this. At the state level, you can be asked this. So most written tests have additional topics added in that were designated as states only topics. Those are now fair game. So please encourage your students to reread their rules. Hopefully, they've already done that, but it's always good to check in. And then also, we have posted additional VASO clarifications, just a few of them. But make sure you check those out as well. I'll highlight one in particular later on, but it's just always good to make sure that they're like revisiting the rules, revisiting VASO clarifications, so that they have the correct scope of information that will be assessed. So, other reminders about state changes for builds. Especially if you had multiple teams at regionals and you're now, you've gone through the process of condensing down to one team, which hats off to you. That's always a tough process and decision making to have to go through. But just remember that any devices that are submitted and tested on tournament day have to be built solely by members of your 15-person state team. Can't be by alternates, can't be by someone who was on a regional team that isn't on your state roster. They have to be built 100% by the 15-person state team competing on that day. So, that may mean that they have to rebuild a device if made an event change. And also be mindful of that with the use of alternates as well. If students back out and then you want to use an alternate, just make sure that you're prompting them with, okay, did you actually build any of this device though? Because if I take you off the roster, like I I can't use what you built. So keeping in mind all those construction policies. Um, there's of course more of that to review, so depending on your level of comfort with the construction policies, would encourage you to go back to look at them or have your students look at them again, um, just to make sure that everything is in order. Also, um, students should expect that devices are going to be judged much more strictly than at regionals. So it's important that they double check the rules. They should also address any feedback they received during regionals. And then they can, of course, use the published score sheets, those checklists to check their devices. Um, that's similar advice that I gave for the regional level, but they shouldn't assume that everything has stayed correct and compliant for state. Even just things like, uh, you know, wood bending in different ways, or the moisture in the air, or whatever there may be. It's worth going over again. There are also some key changes to the rules. So I've pulled out what those changes are, or some of them. I don't want to say it's comprehensive, but just to give you a taste of like how these modifications are made. So for like hovercraft, for example, the target time now can be determined in increments of 1 second, whereas before for regionals it was 2 seconds. So that changes, um, like the level of precision of their device and their testing. For machines, the ratios, like the highest ratios have changed. So now the ratios can't exceed 5.5 in Division B and 10 in Division C. They were lower before. Their setup time is also reduced. It was 5 minutes, now it's 4 minutes. In Mission Possible, if your team competed in that at Mary Washington, the target time for regionals was set at 60 seconds. For state, it's a range, 61 to 90 seconds. And if they use a sand timer, in order to earn the bonus, they have to demonstrate how they adjust the sand timer to fit that target operation time, since it's no longer just a set value. For Scrambler and electric vehicle, those target distances can now be in smaller 0.1 meter intervals. So you kind of get the idea, right? They have to be able to like modify their device or have it be more exact or more precise as compared to what it was in regionals. Bungee drop, if you did that at Mary Washington, they now have double the drops, two each at two different drop heights. Robot tours just got more stuff to it, including more water bottles, and the target time window is now different. So all of those little changes should influence how your students are practicing and calibrating their devices, and if they're doing more uh, like practice logs, so that they keep that in mind and are ready for the right scenarios. The main clarification that I wanted to highlight, there are a couple others, but the main one that I wanted to point out to everyone is actually one that we had for the Mary Washington tournament, but will of course be in effect for state as well. This is in helicopter. We are actually requiring goggles now for helicopter. We've just seen too many instances of helicopters imploding, breaking, and right, just like in Boom or any of those balsa events, that can be a little scary. So, we will be asking students to wear goggles, type B, the impact rated goggles, for the helicopter event. For trial events, hopefully you have seen the information we've put out about those. Anyone is able to compete in the trial events. You can send two students to Code Craze and two students to Mystery Architecture. They don't have to be the same students. They could be alternates or roster members or one of each. That our gold bid participants, two students from each school that has a gold bid is eligible to compete in our trial events. But I also want to highlight that for two of them, one in each division, we have our own set of VASO rules. So, mystery architecture and cybersecurity, our rules that we are running are posted on our website. So, please make sure if your students intend to compete in those events that they are looking at the current posted VASO rules and not older iterations of the event that they have found online from when it may have been in national rule books or even just earlier years of VASO. So we do have current 2026 rules for each of those events. Code Craze and protein modeling are in the national rule book. We do have a couple clarifications posted for Code Craze, um, but for the most part, it's being run as written. All right, questions about any big picture things about events before we get into other key reminders. Okay. Can only one student participate in the trial event, or does it have to be two? One student can. Yes, that's permitted. There's more fun with two, but it could just be one. Okay. Some other things I wanted to remind people of, um, goggles. So I feel like every year I live a Groundhog Day at regionals, where we have to turn students away for the goggles that they have, for our chemistry events. So just wanted to remind everybody that they have to be indirect vent goggles. They have to be look like the ones on the left. They can't have the open holes like the ones on the right. Um, they should be close fitting to the face, leave those nice goggle lines, and the vents, should be like closed, so like not popped up. For our events like Boom and Helicopter that allow division types B goggles. These don't have to be like the chemical splash protection goggles. They can be as long as they have the impact rating Z87 plus. So just make sure, especially because they're going to be traveling between buildings and it's going to be harder for them to go back to their home bases to get the right pair of goggles. Just making sure that they're aware of which ones they need when. Um, and ideally, like, no one's packing any of the ones that have holes in them, like the picture on the right. Okay. Oh, Deanna. I mean, it'd be great if you had different goggles. Flint Hills goggles are always like, yes, a unicorn, shall we say. But I'm also happy to continue telling our event supervisors that they're fine. For team member change in a build event, does the device need to be rebuilt from scratch or the existing device reused by reassembling? So it should not be the same device. Any components that the team member who was removed built should no longer be like constructed at like as it was. So just taking it apart and putting it back exactly the same way is not really meeting what that expectation is. It should be rebuilt, any components that that team member built, designed, etc. Which probably means it'll like function as in a different way, however slightly. But that is the nature of it, right? If the team member who designed it is no longer a part of it, the design will ultimately change even slightly. The question is about needing volunteers. If we don't have volunteers, will we be able to sign up for self-schedule event times during the impound hour? Um, so as soon as any of those volunteers, like we need the volunteers to be able to open that up. If we don't have volunteers on tournament day, then I will kindly demand volunteers from your team and then hopefully that would be a greater incentive for them to bring them forward so that they could then sign up for their build events. Uh, the question in the chat is referring to the 10 miler from Charlottesville. No, it is not this weekend. We have once again successfully avoided it. So I a couple of years ago learned who runs it, and so I contact them every year now to ask. So we should be clear. It's just who hacks, which is no small thing. But yeah. Gold bid question. We are only bringing a couple of gold bids. Does a coach still need to be there by 7:30 for check-in? The answer is no. So for gold bids, they're able to check in later as long as whatever event they're doing does not require impound. So yeah, they can check in later. Oh, yes, we'll talk about the yes, same place for check-in. It'll be at Wilsdorf all day. Um, will there be check-in at TJ this week? Yes, I have that on the coach checklist. We'll get there. Okay. Other reminders, just making sure that people pack their lab coats or aprons and don't leave those behind by accident. So just making sure students are well equipped for that. Also, depending on the weather, if it like today it was 84 degrees, saw some students wearing shorts. They wouldn't be allowed into to chem lab or to forensics for potions and poisons if they're wearing shorts. So just make sure that like in that weather conversation, you need to bring an umbrella or sunscreen. But if you're in forensics, you definitely need to bring closed-toed shoes and long sleeves and long pants, and those long pants can't be leggings. Ev- The later our state tournament is every year, the more that becomes more of an issue. So hopefully, with this one being early, it's less of an issue. But you never know. There are some students that'll wear shorts when it's 40 degrees. Other things about chemistry events, just a reminder that students should be bringing kits of equipment. They can only bring in their kit the things that were listed on the chemistry supplies page of the rule book. There's one in the B manual as well as the C manual. Of course, not all materials are required. They can curate their own kit how they'd like to, but the one main thing I want to say is that they should not assume that the materials required for the regional event will be exactly the same as the state level lab. So they should be thoughtful with what they bring with them. So just put that plug in there. Doesn't they probably weren't written by the same people, but even if they were, they're doing different lab activities, so they shouldn't just bank on that experience. And of course, if they don't have a kit at all, that does put them at a significant disadvantage. They're not going to be able to do a huge chunk of our chemistry events. Other things, make sure your teams are reading their rules again, and that they're bringing only the allowed materials, whether it's binders, note sheets, etc., the type of calculators that they're allowed for every event. Um, and then just a reminder that they should bring writing utensils to tests and to impound. Um, and then if your students are competing in Write It, Do It, for many of them, this will be the first time that they've seen it since we didn't have it at regionals. Just wanted to say that we do provide the supplies for that. So it literally is just the writer needs to bring a pencil, and that's it. Like with everything, encourage your students to read the website, read the rule book, read our score sheets, everything. So many resources are available on the Vaso website that they should be referring to. If I went through all of that, these talks would be like hours and hours long. And that's also not a task that should fall on you. It should be our competitors. So just put the reminder out there and hopefully they listen to you. I do have a checklist that I had shared with you all for a lot of these tasks and reminders related to volunteer sign up and build event sign up, etc. So please take a look at that if you haven't already. Main things I want to put on your radar would be that the 13th, so that's this Friday, at 5 p.m. is when rosters close. Um, for rosters, remember we have max of 15 students on a competition team and a max of 4 alternates. And of course, in Division C, we still have the seniors rule, max of 7. Those close at 5 p.m. Just like you did with regionals, there's a link now on your portal page where you can create your state team and add students to that state roster. There is a designation that you can make for alternates. So that does show up as an option for you to do. The question in the chat is, does the maximum amount of 7 seniors apply to alternates as well? The answer is no. That in theory, you could bring 7 seniors on your team and then 4 senior alternates. However, if they have to fulfill their alternate duties and actually like take the place of someone on the state team due to illness or an emergency or whatever, they would not be able to substitute for anybody else other than a senior um, in that scenario. So I just caution um, putting yourself in, backing yourself into a corner like that. But alternates get designated because alternates do also get wristbands. So they'll have a different color wristband from your team. But because they're competing in trial events, like we have to know who they are, just like we want to know who all the other people coming in for events are. If you do have a new student that's joining your state team, they still do need a VASO permission form. So that link is still active on our website that they can fill that out, and then they would show up in your roster options, just like students did for regionals. If they filled one out for regionals and they were on your roster already, they don't have to do a second one. This is just for new students. For gold bid teams, your rosters are already set. However, you can remove students. You just can't add any, right? Because they're for specific students who earned those bids. So you can't like replace them with other students. But let's say you have a duo who's going to do anatomy, but only one of them can make it. You can take the other student off. That is a permitted function. So for looking at our checklist again, um, all that roster stuff by Friday. As you all know, the volunteer sign up has been open and uh it was tied to the build event sign up that opened tonight at 6. And like I said, I saw like 17 of the teams already jumping in and signing up for their builds. Um, the volunteer sign up will close on the 18th. So that's a week from today. You can see who signed up just like you could for regionals. There's a link that on your portal that says state volunteers. So you can click that and see the status for your volunteers. You can see how many shifts have been approved, how many more you need, and you can see what shifts they've signed up for. If you have volunteers that don't seem to have approved shifts, that's because they haven't selected a shift. So they have to make an account, but then they also have to go in and select what time and role they're going to be volunteering. So there's nothing for me to approve until they select their shift. So if that's a disconnect, where you're like, I have volunteers, why haven't they been approved? They need to select a shift. But amazingly, like we have over 90% of our volunteer shifts covered for state already. So thank you guys so much for being so on top of that, getting them in quickly. It really makes things so much easier for us. As many of you have already figured out, there is a button on the portal for scheduling device and trial event times. So Gold Bid participants do also need to sign up for trial events if they're participating in them. Just make sure that there's not going to be a way for them to select the other ones. But yeah, sign up for those trial events in addition to your device events. We're more flexible with the trial event times rather than assigning them by team number. Not everyone chooses to participate in the trial events, but I hope you do. They're going to be really fun this year. I'm excited to see Mystery Architecture. The device and trial event signups close on Friday the 20th at 7 a.m. So that's the morning before the tournament. And then some reminders about what these signups mean. Just like at regionals, teams are signing up for an entire block, but except for Mission Possible, they're not going to be there the whole time. They're not competing the whole time. It's going to be like 15 minutes of testing. But it's important that they plan to be there at the beginning of the session, and that you've worked to sign them up for sessions that don't conflict with their other events, to the best of your ability. Especially with the travel between buildings. Students may be a little stressed about getting to their next event if they're waiting for builds. But just like we had at regionals, we encourage our event supervisors to, if they can, to ask who wants to go first. And so our students can speak up and say, hey, I have an event next session. Can I go ahead and go? Like I said, Mission Possible can't really do that. They'll have their like synchronous setup time, but for all the other build events, there is flexibility in that. And we've also left like 15 minutes of travel time between sessions, so that should help. Even though the trial events are self-scheduled, they do take a full test period. Like they have a written test or an online test, or in the case of Mystery Architecture, they're building something, so they should expect those to take the whole session time. Some other competition reminders for you. Appeals, same system that we used at regionals. They're filed online via the coach portal. They do need to be filed within 1 hour of the end of the relevant event. So please be mindful of that. It's, we will not even entertain appeals that are outside of that window. Coach accounts on the portal are the ones that can file appeals. Student leadership accounts cannot. And then, especially because we're spread out a little bit across UVA grounds, really important that your contact info as a coach is correct in the portal. This is how we can get in touch. We can give you a quick call, find out where you are. It does email you if there's an update to your appeal, but calling is easier. And then, if they need to, they can meet with you face to face. But please make sure that that contact info is correct. And just like we had for regionals, we will have a score room number that will be eligible for you to text. Again, because the score room will be in a different place than most of the competition and where the team rooms are. Some other reminders, if you wanted to share these with families that may be traveling with you, some reminders about our parent participation policy. Again, they shouldn't be entering competition area, interfering in any way, touching or taking pictures of other devices. Of course, they can't construct anything on the device. Your students may have answered questions about that at regionals. That will be the case at state as well. And then the one I wanted to highlight is that parents should not be contacting VASO directly with concerns or questions. They should be addressed by you as the head coaches. And then you can come to me if you need further clarification. I just find that at the state level, the stakes feel a little higher, and so there can be sometimes be more feelings around things, and so I tend to get more parents wanting to talk to me, but I want to like maintain that boundary and have them go through you, and that they respect your role as a coach. We also have our cleanup policy, especially in those shared team spaces. That's going to be important. But of course, we want to leave the rooms that we're using at UVA just as we found them, even better than we found them. So please remind your team members that they are expected to clean up after themselves after each event. In the shared space, they are expected to clean up after themselves. And we do have written policy about penalties that we will enforce if that is not the case. That would directly affect team rankings in events. So we never want to have to give those penalties, but it is there. And so hopefully they can pick up after themselves. Like I said, we leave a trash bag with you guys for the coach packets, so hopefully they put that to use. Some more specific UVA information. I mentioned before, we'd really encourage our team members to take advantage of the Observatory Hill Dining Hall. It's open from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Saturdays. And so it's, like just single entrance and then eat to your heart's desire. The price this year, from what I found on their website, is $16.25 per person per entrance. They only take card though, so no cash. So please have your students plan ahead. It is quite convenient to the tournament location because it is really close to Gilmer. So would definitely encourage that. There are other dining options available on or near UVA grounds that you can find on their dining website if O'Hill does not meet your team's needs. Um, but I would give a specific plug for Division C teams to really consider eating dinner at O'Hill because it's close enough that they could do that before awards and then between session 7 and the awards ceremony, and they don't have to go very far since it's just like a quarter of a mile walk from where the awards ceremony will be in the Chem lecture hall. Speaking of awards, just a reminder that Division B awards will happen at 6:30, Division C awards at 7:30. We do announce the top 6 in each event, plus gold bid placements. Those will receive medals. And then the top 5 schools will earn trophies in each division. Qualification for nationals. If you didn't know, this year nationals is at the University of Southern California. It's taking place on the Friday and Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. We are guaranteed one spot for Division B and one spot for Division C at nationals. What the national organization normally tells us is that by April 1st or thereabouts, we will know whether or not we qualify for a second team bid in either B or C. This is all to say, I do not expect to have that information at our state tournament. We have kind of been a bubble state where we've earned a second bid in Division B the past couple of years, and our Division C has actually never outright earned a second bid, but we've gotten them from other states declining. So I can't say with certainty or confidence whether I expect that we'll be earning second bids in either division. And I don't expect to know on the state date. They go based on like the largest programs based on registration in each division year to year to fill the national tournament up to 60 teams in each division. So I will share it when I know it. But just wanted to be clear about that on the day of the awards ceremony, it's only going to be the first place teams that I know with certainty are going to USC. But second place teams will be, put encouraged to not disband because we may get, you know, positive information thereafter. We'll see. We'll see how it shakes out this year. All right. What questions do you all have? That is all I expected or to share, but if there's anything else I've missed, let me know. Can gold bid students, I think you mean can gold bid students qualify for nationals? The answer is no. They cannot. Gold bids are something that is like is Vaso designed. It is actually not directly supported by nationals. So state is the highest they can go. Oh goodness. I had a question about metric mastery. Three sections, the first and third section are estimation and measurement. Okay, so the specifics of metric mastery, I don't think they can go to different stations, but I also don't really think we can entertain event specific questions. I would encourage them to just read the rules, and their event supervisor will give them clear direction on tournament day. Are there places to bring food in for the team to eat between the last event and awards, like a common area? No, not really. There isn't like a place where there can be like catering brought in, which is why we really encourage the dining hall, or you can walk just off grounds to the corner, and there's places there to eat, but there isn't going to be a space where there are like tables and chairs where teams could easily set up something inside. If the weather's nice, I know some teams have used picnic benches, which are around on campus, but I would not expect that. It just depends on the forecast. Can we get a copy of the slides before the video is posted? Yes, I will email it to you. Actually, I can do you one better. I think I can. Well, yeah, I'll email it to you directly. I was gonna pull up the link, but then I gotta get out of my shared Zoom. Is the volunteer requirement going to stay at 3 people per school for Division C? I actually, so for context, for some schools that hadn't given me any volunteers, I had been able to like in that case, lower it to 3. I expect that to stay. Yes. Um, so please give us your volunteers. Oh, yes. Am I offering Friday night check-in at the Vasa Hotel? Yes. Thank you for reminding me. That was on my checklist and I totally skipped over it. Sorry, as I go through all my slides. Um, so on Thursday next week, March 19th, from 4:30 to 6:30, I will offer coach packet pickup at TJ, because that's where I work. So just making it convenient for me, to be honest. So you are welcome to come at that time. And then if that is not convenient for you, especially if you're not from Northern Virginia, I will share where you can come to see me Friday night at my hotel and do packet pickup in Charlottesville from 8 to 9 p.m. So both of those will be options, and I will share the details of like what door at TJ or what hotel in an email message to you. Oh, thanks, Hannah. That's so nice. Sorry if I missed it, but is it up to the team when the students check in with the team, as some students have events only in the afternoon? Yes, it is totally up to you, just as long as you're following whatever your school policy is with field trip travel, and that they are aware of the impound requirements for their events. Raj, what you're asking is about volunteers. So we have a different number required for B versus C teams. That was shared in the email earlier.
Emily, I have a question. Can I go ahead? I don't
Sure.
know Okay, Emily, I think Friday is a holiday. So if we collect it in the evening on Thursday from TJ, I won't be able to distribute it to my students in school because Friday is, I think it's a Eid
Ye-
holiday.
Yes, I understand. I actually would strongly urge you to not give students ever their wristbands early. You should give them to
Got it.
them on Saturday at competition.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, what else? If you so the two pieces there about packet pickup. The packet pickup options at TJ on Thursday or at the hotel on Friday are optional. If you do those, you do not need to check in with me at Wilsdorf at 7:30 in the morning on Saturday. So you really have three coach packet pickup options. Thursday between 4:30 and 6:30 at TJ. Friday between 8 and 9 at my hotel. Saturday morning at Wilsdorf starting at 7:30. Pick one. And it has to be a coach who gets them, so they need to be listed as a coach, say yes, they're going to state, have a wristband, all that stuff. I think that's a question for Karen. What- About getting his event supervisor. I'll have an event supervisor packet. I can give that, but I don't know about the other material. She's been working that out with him.
Yes. Yeah, Peter and I have been working this out, and you're welcome to pick up all of his stuff to be an event supervisor. Thank you.
I did just want to go back and make sure people were clear about what we're asking with the chemistry building. So again, I will have chaperone lanyards that I will include in coach packet pickup, whichever of the three options that you pick. We really encourage adults to escort the competitors to the rooms, especially the littles, right, our elementary school students. That's why we like didn't just say no chaperones in the building at all. But um again, that can be passed around. So that may need to be an additional component, especially, for our veteran coaches. A new thing that you may need to consider in like the planning that you're doing to share with your families about like, I'm going to ask you to escort the potions and poisons students into the chem building or the Write It Do It students into the chem building or like whatever. So just wanted to, we had so much information shared tonight, wanted to return to that. So making sure that is part of the planning you're doing on behalf of your team. Yes, volunteers, if they have signed up, will get info directly regarding their check-in and other logistics. They'll get an email from our volunteer coordinators that say the time, the place, etc. All right, guys. Thanks so much. I will share the slides with you. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And of course, I'll see some of you Thursday night. I'll see some of you Friday night, and I'll see hopefully all of you at some point in the day on Saturday the 21st.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.